So the underlying premises of the mitzvah of Nida is that the soul is also in God's image, and it's expressed through the body. So the body has intrinsic meaning and kedusha and holiness. So the way other peoples relate to the menstrual cycle is usually by either ignoring it or with suspicion and fear. You could see this? I can't resist telling you a terrible joke. There are only two of you, okay? So once there was a man, and he belonged to the mounted police up in the Yukon, yeah? And you know the Mounties always get their man, so he was assigned to find someone, a murderer. But he was a lazy Mountie. He didn't like the snow and the ice. He liked sitting by the fire in the bar in Juneau. So what he did is he found an Eskimo and he said, listen, if you find me this man, here's the picture, and bring him to me, I'll take him to the police station in Juneau. I'll be okay and I'll make it okay for you. I'll let you go to any store you want. You can buy whatever you want. Just find me this man, okay? So the Eskimo came out with his sled and he tracks the man down, brings him back. I'm in the middle of a joke, don't think you missed a whole lot. And the Mountie turns him into the police. Now this Mountie didn't have a nice character. As we see, he's getting the Eskimo to do his work. So now he doesn't really want to spend much money on rewarding him. So he said, well, I said any store, but I really meant the biggest store in Juneau. So he takes him to this gigantic supermarket. So you could have anything in the supermarket. So the Eskimo was looking up and down the aisles, what does he want? And none of it, nothing in the supermarket is really that great or that expensive. So he finally comes to the checkout counter with a huge box of sanitary pads. So the Mountie, even he felt bad about this. He said, you don't really want this. I'll even let you choose two things. Choose something that you want. So he says, oh, you fooled me. You're not going to fool me again. So he said, what do you mean? Look what it says here. You could swim. You could... Okay, got this? So the reason I'm telling you this is that it's reflective of the way society doesn't confront anything. So movies are certainly opening up about relationships. I mean, it can get worse, more. Okay. But nobody has her period in the movies, right? Okay. So the reason is people don't know what to do with it. So in primitive societies, there's ritualization around this. So the way it goes in primitive societies is that they'll usually isolate the woman. So the Western theory is, oh, these primitive people, they don't understand what's happening in the human body, so they're scared. They think it's death. So I want you to think about primitive society. Think Africa. Okay? You think, these are people who live close to the earth, who hunt. How many people live in today's Africa? Don't even go back far. In today's Africa, how many people are you talking about? 1,000 people? 1 million people? What are you talking about? Many millions, right? Many, many millions. You don't think from all of those people somebody figured out throughout the ages, the pregnant ones don't seem to get it. The really young ones don't seem to get it. The old ones don't seem to get it. I bet it has something to do with reproduction. You don't think they got it? Does that make sense to you? Of course they know exactly what's going on, better than Western people do. So the question is, why do they ritualize it through isolation? That's the question. But it's not that they don't understand. So the reason from a Judaic perspective, and in Judaic sources they'll say that ancient people also did the same, is that in a relationship there needs to be a time of distance and a time of closeness. And your body will let you know which time is which. Why should there be a time of distancing? People don't like distance. People only want closeness. What do you think distancing is good for?
To work on other things besides physicality.
Right, to have a relationship that's verbal, that's experiential, that isn't just physical. So when marriages don't work, it's not because people are bad. What are the divorce stats in America now? Do you know?
Over 50%.
In some places over 50%, in some places just under 50%, 49 plus. In California, which is the worst, okay? In California, the statistical odds is that anybody who dies today will have been married at least twice. Isn't that like, okay, that's pretty appalling. Okay, so it's not, oh, those evil Californians. The system doesn't work. So there are two real failings in the system, and they come from a similar root. They think that the physical side of relationship is all there is. But it's not satisfactory. It's not satisfactory to women. It's not even satisfactory to men. So the shidduch system moderates some of this because people know who they're meeting before they meet them. But the real thing, much more important than that, is the nida laws, that in marriage, from day one, you have a significant amount of the time where you're relating to each other non-physically. That's as it's meant to be. Your body is telling you. The physical body is frail and fragile and death-bound. That's a good time for separation. Okay, this is clear? So the name of this form of separation is called tuma. A person who's in that state is called tameh. Let's understand what that means. I think I took you through this in another class. We spoke about how as you look at the pyramid of life, there are more and more possibilities. Do you remember this? No. Okay. This pen isn't alive. You'll all agree with me? Even though you've watched a lot of Disney and like maybe at night it gets up and it plays with the pencils. No, it really isn't alive. Okay, but if you were to look at it as we actually can't yet, but suppose we had a microscope strong enough to see subatomic particles. Would you see movement?
Yeah.
You for sure would. You'd see dancing. They sort of like, they move continually in no observable order, which is fascinating because the atoms are extremely ordered, but the subatomic particles aren't. Isn't that interesting? I guess only I think it's interesting. Oh, whatever. Okay, so it is alive. How come we don't see all this movement?
So small. So too small for our eyes.
Too small for our eyes and too dense. Okay, clear? So it's alive, but its aliveness is very, very limited to anything we could observe. So move up to plants. What could a plant do that this pen can't do? Lives, it dies, it grows, it reproduces, it makes smell. What are some other things that it does?
It needs to eat.
It eats, yeah.
It goes through photosynthesis.
It photosynthesizes, okay. What?
It might even produce vegetable or flower.
It might produce vegetable flour. It certainly produces carbon.
Yeah.
Okay, clear? So it does a lot more than this does. So we'll call it more alive, okay? Think about an animal. Okay, your favorite animal. What's your favorite animal?
Kelev.
A kelev. Okay, what's yours?
I like kelevs too.
You like kelevs too. You all like kelevs, okay. So a kelev could do a lot of things that a plant can't do. What are some things a kelev could do that a plant eina yechola lasot?
Have a relationship with you and snuggle.
Okay, it's emotional. Okay, a dog is emotional.
Jerry.
Tell me more.
It sleeps.
It sleeps. So do plants actually, but that's it.
Plays.
It plays, it sees, it hears, it walks, it feels, it smells. Okay,
It
recognizes people. Okay, much more, right? So we would say it's much more alive than a plant, right? Okay. What could a person do that a kelev can't do?
We did do this.
I know. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, we think logically, we make moral choices, we have imagination, we're creative, we use our thumbs, we could make tools, we work on our souls, we're more alive. So we'll say endless possibilities, though, is only God, because humans' possibilities are also limited. So that's why God is called the God of life. And when a person dies, everything shuts down. A human dies, they're not like a kelev, and they're not like a plant. They're not even like a pen. Everything shuts down. So death is called tuma. Tuma means blockage. Blockage from what? From life force.
From life.
Force. From all vitality. So death is the ultimate tuma. Okay? So the tuma of death is so great that in earlier times there was like a lot of ritual to help a person get out of the state of feeling blocked by their own mortality. So if you touched a body, were in the room with the body, there were rituals. Today we don't do these rituals because you need the temple for it. Okay, so there are lesser degrees of tuma than death. So I'm leading you to nida, as I'm sure you realize, but I want to give you one that's also in this picture. There was a physical consequence to speaking Lashon Hara in earlier times. Did you know this? Do you know what psychosomatic illnesses are?
When you think
There's a big difference. Hypochondria is when a person has an emotional agenda to be ill, either consciously or subconsciously, and then they become ill or act as though they're ill. Like a child, it could be as overt as a child who doesn't want to take a test. So, I have a headache. Then the mom says, okay, you could stay home. Then like the kid's like, no more headache, okay? That's called hypochondria. That's not psychosomatic illnesses. Psychosomatic illnesses are when the soul or the mind actually affects the body. So it's real and it's not subconscious, it's real. So an example of that would be that people under a high degree of stress will have higher blood pressure, do come down with cancer more frequently because stress degrades the immune system. Did you know this? Okay. So that's physical, that's observable, it's physical. Okay, so that's what psychosomatic illness is. So it's real symptoms that are caused by a mental state, okay, or a spiritual state. So in earlier times, when the bond between us and God was more overt, when people were habitually speak Lashon Hara, negative speech, harmful speech against other people for no reason, their bodies actually would develop skin ailments. So this skin ailment, which is called saras, isn't leprosy. Leprosy has to do with, again, it's not psychosomatic. This was psychosomatic. If the soul was ill, the body became ill. So it's not the mind, it's the soul. So that was also considered a form of death. The skin ailment would cause the skin to harden and actually fall off, like become like dead. But this is because its cause, which is speaking ill of people, means that you don't see their aliveness, you don't see their goodness, you don't see their vitality. You understand this, which is what causes a person to speak ill of someone else. Okay, nida, the menstrual cycles, are also a form of vicarious death. Could you see where this is so? So it's a degree of tuma, but not a high degree like actual death. So this is why we still do the rituals concerning nida, because it's small enough for us to deal with. Death is too big. So what's the ritual? So the first is separation, which has the benefit of developing the relationship. So then what happens after the days of separation? So your sign, your physical sign, that the ovum has been rejected for this month is the blood itself, right? So the next thing is to examine yourself to see whether whether the blood has stopped. Okay, that's the next thing. So it's a self-examination. Nobody has to do this for you. So a side effect of women examining themselves frequently every month, what do you think a logical outcome with this? Not that this is the cause, it's just an outcome, which I'm mentioning as a side. It's very, very rare for religious women to have ovarian cancer and uterine cancer because they'll notice their bodies more. Okay, clear? But I'm not saying that that's the reason for the mitzvah, I'm just saying it's an interesting side effect. Ovarian more than uterine, because uterine cancer is sometimes very subtle. Okay, clear? Okay, so she examines herself, and if the examination cloth, which is like a 2x2 white cloth that you buy in the Frum drugstores, or it seems to be rather bad taste, but they sell them in the Frum grocery stores also, but that's another story. Okay, and kids, you know how kids in Israel go to the store, like the 5-year-old takes the 4-year-old and the 3-year-old with them to the store. You've seen this? Okay, so they buy tahara cloths, like the whole thing, like it's just like right there on the list, along with milk and bread and arctic and, you know. So it's very normal. It's like a normal part of life. So in any case, the next 7 days are also days of separation. Then there's the mikveh, and I told you about this, and I'm giving you more depth of what I told you last time, in case you notice it's the same story but to a different tune. So The rigor of preparing for the mikveh is real. It takes anywhere between a half hour and an hour to prepare. So what basically happens in this half hour to an hour is that you're getting your body absolutely clean. Parts of your body that you never think about, like the holes in your ears if you have pierced ears. Do you ever think about them? No. Okay, but you would clean them. You'd run a string through it. Okay, so you end up absolutely clean. The cleanliness is there not because it's nice to be sparkly clean once in a while. It's to see that there's nothing that impedes between her body and the waters of the mikveh. So the mikveh's waters parallel the fluid that was on the earth's surface at the very beginning of time before God drew away the waters to make the continents. It's parallel to the fluid in a woman's body in which the embryo is floating. So it has to do with renewal. So you could think this is all like very imaginative and poetic, but not real, but it's not. So this is part of what purity is about. Purity is about reintroducing yourself to life force after an experience with death. Okay, clear? So the mikveh will always have a woman who's been trained in all of the laws of mikveh. So you could ask her, I have this funny scab, does that have to come off? Or, look, I just did my hair, I really don't want to take the dye off, do I really have, like she'll know the answer to all of these questions. She takes a course. But there are sometimes complexities, okay, clear? Okay, so after the mikveh, the woman immerses. The custom of how many times she immerses is either 4 times or 7 times. Ashkenazi women immerse 4 times, Sephardi women immerse 7 times. Okay? Then there's a blessing. So she's in the water, not dressed, just immersed, saying a blessing. And that time then is considered to be a time of great closeness to Hashem. Someone will stay in the water another minute or two and ask for, like for shlom bayit, for their children, for whatever it is that they want to talk to Hashem about. Okay, then you come out of the mikveh, and the fancier mikvehs have spa-like dressing rooms, etc., etc. Yeah?
Sorry, why 4 times or 7?
So the 4 times parallel the 4 letters in Hashem's name. The 7 times parallel the creation itself and the attributes that lie underneath each day of creation.
Cool. And it just means so each time it'd be like you are completely submerged and then you come back up.
Not up the stairs, just your head out of the water. Yeah, you stand up.
And then go back in.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And you say the blessing once.
Right, you say the blessing once at the end.
At the end.
Right. Okay.
What is the blessing?
Asher Kiddush, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Asher Kiddishanu, like you say for washing, B'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, and the 2 extra words are Al Hatvila, which means on immersing. Tvila.
Al Hatvila.
Right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so
I've
then,
never done one before.
yeah.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, it is so cool. It's the sort of mitzvah there are people, I know a lot of people who started keeping this mitzvah after they were married already. It improves the marriage immeasurably. The husband and wife have a whole different relationship when they're working on having communication without a body. And then seeing the relationship itself, the intimacy is something pure and holy and part of living and life force is very different than the mentality of something secretive or dirty or whatever that some people bring into marriage. Okay, clear? Or just purely physical. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now she gets dressed. Fancy mikvahs sometimes have a make-up lady selling her stuff, so you could, whatever, and other mikvahs they don't. Okay, and then you go home. It's a mitzvah for the woman and her husband to have relations that night. Now remember, they knew the night, a week ago. If it was Tuesday that she did her self-examination, so she knows mikveh night is the following Tuesday. Tuesday, this is not rocket science. So they plan their lives that way. This is a night for, let's say, going out to dinner, or, it's not a night for inviting the Cub Scouts. It's not a night for going on a cookout with your mother-in-law. It's got this. It's not the day he would plan his business trip. Okay, so a lot of their life goes around mikveh night. Okay, so that basically is it. So this is all a chok, because you would never think of doing this yourself. You would need to have some sort of a divine force telling you, here's how to relate to your body. And the proof of it is nobody else knows this. It's a Jewish thing.